Hey y'all, welcome back to MamaFin's Kitchen. It's getting to be the start of the new week, and I'm going to show you how to make some scones tonight. I'm going to make these and have these ready for us to have for like a breakfast for this coming week, and thought you'd really like to know how to make these. They're super easy. They come together pretty quick, but they do take just a little bit of prep, so we'll walk through that. I'm going to actually make two kinds of them tonight. I'm going to make an orange cream scone, and then we're going to make a blueberry lemon scone. And the blueberry lemon scone is the one that we're going to start with. So let's talk about the cast of characters that you're going to need. And it's essentially the same base for both of these. And then you just switch out, instead of blueberries and lemon, you just put a little bit of orange instead. So we'll talk about that. But to get started, the things that you're going to need is you're going to need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And it's already in my mixer here. And then you're going to need 1/3 cup of sugar, also in my mixer here, but just a good old-fashioned white sugar, just 1/3 cup of that. You're going to need 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and you're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then you're going to need the zest of 1 lemon, a fresh lemon, and you're going to need 1 stick of butter. And I want you to freeze that butter in advance, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But you need 1 stick of butter. You're going to need 1/4 cup of heavy cream, and then you're going to need 1 egg. You're going to need some vanilla, and then you're going to need some fresh blueberries. And your fresh blueberries, I want you to go ahead and rinse them, drain them, and dry them off really, really well. Okay? So, and then 1/4 cup of sour cream is the last thing. So let's talk about your butter. When making scones, butter is the key. The key to making flaky scones is having really, really cold butter. And there's a really great way to have really cold butter. Freeze it. I want you to freeze your butter, and I want you to freeze it in the stick way in advance so it gets frozen solid. Then when you're ready to do your scones, I want you to grab your box grater, like what you grate cheese with, and I want you to cut that stick of butter in half, and I want you to grate that butter, okay? And I have left it in the freezer, keeping it cold until we're ready to use it. But I want you to grate that, cut it in half, and because it's going to warm to the touch of your hand while you're grating it. But I want you to grate that on that box grater, and then stick it in the freezer while you're prepping everything else to keep that really nice and cold, because you want that butter to be super duper cold, because that's what's going to give you really flaky and delicious scones. So let's get started. And the first thing that I want you to do is put your flour, your sugar, your baking powder, your salt down into the mix. We're just going to give that a little mixy mix. Then I want you to take a fresh lemon, and I've already washed him off, and I want you to grate the zest. I want you to grate this lemon, the peel of this, into your mixing bowl. And remember, like we've talked about before, when you grate the zest off of a peel, you just want to take that very, very top layer. You don't want to get down into the white part, because that's bitter. That's the pith, and it's real bitter. So just take the fresh little layer right off the top. Give that a little tap to make sure that our zest gets down in there. Off our microplane. Then save your lemon. We're going to use this again later in the glaze. We're going to put a little bit of the lemon juice into the glaze. So we've got our lemon zest down in here. We're going to give it a little toss with our spatula to get it coated with the flour mixture. That way it doesn't stick to our beater up here. Okay. So then the next thing I want you to do is I want you to put in your heavy cream. And then grab an egg here. Stir him up real quick. Put the egg down in. And then I want you to put that sour cream in. And then I want you to put in a teaspoon of vanilla, and we're going to use the ginger spirit extracted vanilla today from Vein Vanilla. Like y'all know, it's my favorite out of Kansas City. But this one is extracted in ginger spirits, and it's going to go really nicely with that blueberry in the lemon. So about a teaspoon of that in there. Then we're going to mix this together. see it's just a real crumbly kind of dough here. Just barely mix that. Except when you accidentally turn it on high. And then we're gonna grab our butter out of the freezer. So you'll see that it looks really kind of lacy. When you do it on the box grater, you can see all those little grates of butter, and that is perfect in here. So we're gonna put this down into our dough mixture, and we're just gonna barely mix this until this comes together. Okay, I don't want you to mix it very much because you don't want to heat this butter. You don't want to melt it in there. We're gonna gently mix that just until we start to barely form a dough. Just like that. And you're gonna see that it's pretty crumbly, and that's to be expected, okay? Okay, so see, it looks kind of like that. Okay, so you'll see that down here in front of me, I have a pastry cloth. So it's a very well-loved pastry cloth, but we're gonna flour it just barely. So just a little all-purpose flour, because we're gonna turn this dough out and we're gonna press this together. And you're gonna think to yourself, well, that's just weird. And yes, it is a little bit weird, but so goes the making of scones. And you can see in this dough chunks of butter. See these little beautiful chunks of butter in there? It's exactly what we want, because as we go to make this into our scones, that butter in the oven is going to melt and create beautiful flaky air pockets. So we're going to take our blueberries and we're just going to gently kind of fold the dough over on them to kind of mix them in. It's about 3/4 of a cup of fresh blueberries. And be careful pressing them in too hard, because if you push too hard on them, they'll burst and then you'll get blueberry juice into your dough, and it can create it and make it soggy. So just be careful as you're doing this, that you just very gently mix them in. And if you don't use the full 3/4 cup, depending on if your blueberries are really big, that's cool too. Just kind of do it until you think you've got enough blueberries mixed in. And we can always push them into the top too, very easily. So you can see that I'm kind of patting this out into a little bit of a square slash round-ish shape. And that's how we're gonna cut our scones. It's just a real rough kind of rectangle, you'll find. We'll press our blueberries here into the top. Oop, busted him. That's all right. He'll be okay. Nice amount of blueberries in there. Now then, give it a good press until it's about 1/2 inch thick, something like that. Keep it even if the best you can. Then I want you to take a sheet tray, something like this. And I want you to line it with parchment, just good old parchment paper, okay? That's my favorite Pampered Chef sheet tray. It's fantastic. I adore it. Now, we've got our beautiful scone dough here, ready to rock and roll. And what I want you to do, as you can see, it's kind of square. We're gonna cut these into triangles. So I want you to cut it in half. Nice sharp knife. And then I want you to cut it in half again. And then just cut them into little slices. Now, if you have time and you want to, you can stick this dough back into the freezer, put it on your parchment sheet on your sheet tray, and put it back into the freezer for about 10 or 15 minutes to get that butter cold again. If you don't have time to do that, it's okay. But if you do have time, it will really make your scones even better. But I want you to take your sheet tray and just line these out on that parchment paper. They will expand just a little. There we go. I like to have them all go in the same direction, but he's not going to, so we're just gonna fit him right there. The OCD in me comes out sometimes, you know, y'all. It's just a little different shape, and that's gonna drive me crazy, but that's right, we'll put it right there. Short trip. That drive to crazy is a little short sometimes. There, we'll just do them like that. That'll make me feel better. We're gonna put these into a 400-degree oven for 16 minutes, okay? Look like that. So we're gonna take these beautiful little scones and we're gonna pop them into the oven. Minutes. Beautiful. So we'll come back after that 16 minutes and I'll show you the scones. In the meantime, I'm going to mix up the orange versions of these. So in order to do the orange version, you're going to need the same thing. 2 cups all-purpose flour, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, a tablespoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then you need the zest of an orange instead of the zest of a lemon. You'll use the same frozen butter that's grated, and you'll put 1 egg in, the sour cream and the heavy cream. In that version of the orange, I'm gonna use the orange extracted spirits from Tongan vanilla extracted in orange spirits from my friends at Vein Vanilla. So we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna mix those up while those are in the oven, and we'll get 2 versions of these going for us to have for breakfast this week, okay? So hang on, y'all, we'll get her done. But because my other ones are still in the oven, I need some way to keep this cold while those are finishing to bake. So one thing that you can do is grab that sheet of parchment paper that you have and just sit it on top of a cutting board like this Pampered Chef one. You can sit it on top of a cutting board temporarily and go ahead and cut your scones just like we did a minute ago. Go ahead and cut those. And you notice that I cut mine into I formed mine into a rectangle. You can form it into a circle if you prefer. Doesn't really matter. However that you like to do it, it's totally fine. And then we're just gonna lay these out on this parchment for it to chill. I'm gonna stick them in the freezer until I'm ready to put them into the oven with the other ones after the other ones are done baking. So I'm gonna stick these up into the freezer, just kind of like that. They're just sitting on here, but that'll keep those nice and cold and keep that butter from warming up to room temperature while we're getting the other ones baked. and getting those taken care of. So we're gonna get the blueberry lemon ones out of the oven, and as soon as they're done, we'll whip up a quick little glaze to put on top of them, and you'll have scones and you'll be ready to rock and roll. So I'm gonna throw these into the freezer, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, y'all, our timer just went off, so we're gonna take the first batch out of the oven, take a look, see what they look like. Ugh, these look beautiful. My glass is totally just fogged up, but look at those. Golden brown, that's 16 minutes at 400 degrees. So that is golden brown deliciousness. And I've got a cooling rack sitting here on my counter, but we're going to gently lift off that parchment with the scones on it onto this cooling rack very carefully. Ooh, man down. I lost a blueberry. Get back on there. And then we're going to put our second batch, the ones that we have up in the freezer. We're just going to transfer that parchment right here to this beautiful tray. As I don't burn my hands. There we go. So we're going to take our tray of orange ones, slide those right off. See how easy that was? I mean, just piece of cake. And boom. Now you can just toss these into the oven. And that'll be 16 minutes in for these glorious beauties. So we've got our second ones in. These are going to cool here on the cooling rack for just a little bit. We're going to let these babies cool, and then we're going to glaze them. Okay, kids, so while our scones, our orange ones, are in the oven, we're going to whip up our glaze here really quick so we can glaze off our blueberry ones and our orange ones once they've cooled just a little bit. You don't want to glaze them when they're straight out of the oven because the glaze will just melt. So if you'll let them cool just slightly, and then you can drizzle the glaze over the top. Let's make the glaze, okay? So I've got powdered sugar. I'm going to do both of these at the same time, so hang on and hold tight with me. We've got powdered sugar in the bowls, and then we've got 3 tablespoons of melted butter for each. And then for the blueberry lemon ones, we're going to use our ginger vanilla, and we're going to put in about a teaspoon of that. And for our orange ones, we're going to use the orange vanilla again. So we're going to stay consistent with what we used in the scone itself. And then we're going to put in the juice of a lemon. So the lemon that we zested earlier, you can use that little booger. If I have a paring knife. Just cut it in half. It gets pretty soft once you take the zest off the outside, so be careful there. And then we're just going to squeeze in the juice of this lemon into our glaze with our citrus press here. Make sure that you don't get any seeds down in there. If you do, grab those out. Don't want anybody chomping down on a seed. And in our orange one, we're going to use the juice of the orange that we did earlier. Now that orange may not fit into your citrus press, so you can just squeeze it right in by hand if you'd like. Bubba, what you doing? My puppy dog has made an entrance into the kitchen. He's staring at me from behind the camera. I think he smells the scones. He really likes scones. We found out he doesn't really like the blueberries so much. He likes the scone better than the blueberry inside of it. So this is our lemon one. We're just going to stir it together. And depending on how juicy your lemon was, he was pretty juicy, so we're going to add some more powdered sugar to that one. He's a little thin. And you can adjust the thickness or consistency. If you get it too thick and you don't have any more lemon juice because you already squeezed your lemon, just put a little bit of milk or a little bit of water down in there. It won't hurt a thing. But whisk that together. That's a pretty good consistency. It's about what we want to be able to drizzle. You want to be able to drizzle it. He may be a little thin. I may add just a touch more powdered sugar. You want to be able to drizzle it from your whisk, but you don't want it running completely off of your scone. Oh, that's looking better. And when you squeeze that fresh juice, man, my whole kitchen smells like citrus right at the moment. It's beautiful. Oh yeah, that's good. So that's a better consistency. So you can see what it kind of looks like there, but it's drizzleable, but it has some body to it. That's what we want. Okay, so that's the one for our lemon. And then here's our orange. And if you want, if you've got extra lemons and oranges sitting around, like I do, I have a plethora of them at the moment. I was given a whole bunch of oranges, so I had a lot of them sitting around. But if you've got a lot of them sitting around, go ahead and zest another one right into this glaze. And it will be beautiful, number one, to see those little flecks of the fresh zest in there. But man, it sure adds a lot to the flavor. Same thing on the lemon. Because if you're anything like me, if somebody tells you that it's blueberry lemon, you expect to be able to taste the lemon. And the same thing if they tell me that it's an orange scone, I expect it to taste orange. It really ought to just smack me in the face. So, oh, that's beautiful. Okay kids, we're just about done with our orange ones in the oven. They have just about finished their cook time. They have about 30 seconds left, and we're going to give them a little look. Oh, they look good. So we're going to go ahead and pull them out. Beautiful golden brown. Love it. And we're going to do the same thing because we want these to cool quickly. So we're going to pull them very carefully without burning ourselves. Get a hold of that parchment. Do not, I repeat, do not burn yourself by trying to grab that parchment. Just like that. So, oh, these look beautiful. They're really soft right at the moment, so I want to be very careful picking it up. But I mean, look at that beautiful orange. But they are gorgeous. So we're going to let those cool. So we're there. But our blueberry lemon have had a nice chance to cool while those orange were baking. So let's go ahead and get these glazed off. So got our lemon glaze here. Just take your whisk and you can just drizzle it right over the top. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just get those boogers glazed right over the top. They're still a little bit warm, so it'll kind of melt in there too, which is delicious. Scrumptiousness. Get a nice little glazy coating on there. Doesn't have to cover the whole thing. But you have this with your coffee or some hot tea in the morning. Delicious. And y'all, that's exactly what we're gonna do with the ones that are the orange as well. But look at those blueberry lemon. I mean, they're fantastic. So I'm gonna grab a fork, grab a bite. Take a little bite off one of these. Okay, let me just show you inside. Beautiful scone in there. Gorgeous texture. Our glaze is dripping off. Can you go wrong there? But I'm gonna pick up that stray blueberry. There's a blueberry sitting in the outside, but I'm gonna pick up the stray one that had fallen off, and we'll eat him too. But let's give him a whirl. I'm telling you, you get the flakiness and the tenderness of the scone and that dough. It's not too sweet, but then you get the sweetness of the glaze, the blueberries, that fresh blueberries as they pop in your mouth, and the beautiful lemon that comes through, that citrus flavor. It's fantastic. You'll find the same with the orange. You'll really love that orange flavor that comes through and the orange glaze. It's really just refreshing. And overall, this dough is not sweet. You know, I mean, we didn't put a lot of sugar in it. We only had 1/3 of a cup of sugar. So there's just not a lot of sugar in this. So really the sweetness is coming from your fresh orange juice, from your fresh lemon juice, from the lemon zest, the fresh blueberries. That's where all your sweetness is coming through. So it's really great. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me in Mama Fin's Kitchen. I hope you have a blessed week. I've got a lot going on right at the moment with a lot of the produce coming in. I've been canning all weekend, so scones was the perfect way to end up my weekend and get ready for the week. So I hope you all have a blessed week. Stay safe, stay healthy, be kind to one another, take care of one another, and we'll see you next time in Mama Fin's Kitchen. Thanks so much. Have a great week, y'all.